Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all staying safe out there. There's obviously a lot of craziness happening in the world, a lot of changes, a lot of shifts to a lot of markets out there. But in particular, we're going to focus in on cannabis and CBD because that's what we do here at Brightfield Group. So we are getting a lot of questions about how this market is changing right now, how consumers' patterns are shifting right now, and what does this mean for your business in the future. At Brightfield Group, we always leverage a multi-source methodology where we try to pull in data from as many different sources as possible, including consumer data, including interviews with operators on the ground all across the country and the world, social listening data, as well as a wide variety of different sources. So we wanted to put those into play here at Brightfield Group to be able to give you kind of the most actionable insights into what's happening in this space right now, so you can make good decisions on your business. So my name is Bethany Gomez. I'm our managing director, and we are joined by Andy Seeger here as well. He is
Hi.
our Cannabis Research Manager, and will be weighing in on what we're seeing on the ground in cannabis right now. So when we started out, so Andy, what are we seeing on the ground in cannabis right now in the reaction to the virus?
Sure. I think, this industry has been notorious for its shocks. This is one that we absolutely did not expect, and is shaking out with some things that we have not yet seen in some of these markets. So rapid government responses to protect patient access or to expand route to market and supply chain gaps that are appearing. So we're seeing some movements by the governments and the markets to really move quickly to address some holes in these markets, to cover off on patient access and sales and continue to keep these stores open. Deeming of these goods as being essential is huge in this industry, as that ensures patient access and continued sales and will help this industry through this part of the economy.
It's really legitimizing the need for the realization that marijuana has medicinal value. It is an essential product for consumers. It is an essential product for patients, and taking it away would be really detrimental to their health and well-being. So, that's great to have that kind of that level of approval at the government, at the state government levels, even if not yet at the federal levels, for sure.
Yeah, that timeline of liberalization or progressivism of these markets is rather rapid. So we hope to watch for future changes, going forward, more reciprocity between states that have medical cards. If you're sheltering in place outside of your home state, it can be very hard to get, your product, as the states don't allow reciprocity here. Look for more states to interact and watch each other to see what, smart, good practices are doing. But they are certainly trying to move to protect the people in these industries, both medically and, adult use, as that has become such a high amount of revenue happening. As we've heard some odd things across the country. Of one Oregon retailer told us that almost everybody is buying an ounce. So everybody is hunkering down, it seems.
Yeah, and that that kind of leads into another component of what's happening on the sales side, and then what's happening on the consumer side. I think we've seen across the board that that sales have been spiking over the last week and a half, as people run to the dispensaries and and stock up on products. But obviously there's a lot of but there's obviously a lot of question marks around, okay, are people just stockpiling like they're stockpiling laundry detergent and toilet paper and things like that, or are they actually going to increase consumption? So, what are we finding on the consumer side of things, and what kind of the indications are on consumption patterns?
Yeah, I think with some of these delivery services going into action, we're going to start to watch how those operate and function, how they go into the states, and the data that comes out of that. Our queries of retail have shown that people are stockpiling over the weekend. It's tapered off this week. A lot of retailers are taking actions of limiting number of customers in the stores or hours, staying open if possible for their local states, curbside pickup, etc. So they're really trying and doing some novel things. It's a crazy world out there. So the responses are kind of all over, depending on the markets and the states and what's possible and what's not given them. But really rapid responses, and it's really encouraging from this industry to see them shift to protect their clientele.
Absolutely. And a recent survey that we fielded last week, as recently as last week, on cannabis consumers in the around the country, found that consumers were not only stockpiling, but they were also planning to use more weed. Which
Yes.
is, you see, as we also have engaged our social listening trackers here to be able to see what brands are saying, what consumers are saying. There's a lot of quotes around, okay, this is validating my lifestyle of staying at home, smoking weed and watching
Yeah.
Netflix, right? Now the
Yeah.
rest of the country can join me. So,
420 comes a
certainly,
little earlier each day.
if you're, with more than a third of the country in quarantine mode, this is certainly a time, and a lot of people out of work, this is a time that a lot of people are planning to increase their consumption. So that is, it's a strong indicator that not only are we seeing this massive stockpiling, and then we would expect to see, sales tank thereafter if people weren't actually using at an increased rate, and we'd expect to see that, that sustained across the board as well, right? So I think that's a strong indicator of future performance. And also from a consumption standpoint, there were a lot of hypotheses that that edibles consumption was going to shoot through the roof, and all inhalables were going to decline, as people are, since there is a respiratory pandemic,
Yes.
out circulating, but it's
Right.
not really been the case so far. A lot of people are really trying to get the greatest bang for their buck,
Yep.
out of products, and we're seeing what a similar consumption patterns on flour, on concentrates, with some elevated increases on edibles as well, but
Yep.
not seeing vapes and flowers tank yet, right, Andy?
Yeah, we aren't. We're seeing flowers still holding pretty well as everybody's grabbing some of that as they go in. Product limitations in some of these markets like Illinois, Michigan, Massachusetts are going to be driving those format sales.
Mm-hmm.
But in the larger markets like Oregon and everything else, sales format splits and shares are generally pretty in line. It's just heightened. There's more basket ring per basket. So people did stock up. It was usually in line. Gummies are one of those things that you usually have a couple of them at home. So maybe you've already, stockpiled a tin or two in your cabinet anyway. It's a lot easier to keep and keep fresh than flour, or cartridges are just kind of rare to have on hand longer than, a couple weeks or so. So yeah, the format splits are roughly in line. That kind of tracks with what the overall trends that we're seeing that are just towards more edibles, as edibles had a great year this year in science and everything, and dosing and clarity, coming to market with options for consumers that are easy on shelf, accessible, for the intro, the newbies, the boomerangs, all those. So edibles are okay right now. We didn't see the uptake we expected, but everything's flying off the shelves. So we are definitely looking at that. And like you said, we're social listening to find out how people are using. I think we saw a large majority, almost 60%, said they would use somewhat more to a lot more. So that's indicative. And cannabis and other sin goods are kind of sticky. They're usually the ones that stick around longer when you're unemployed, and the first to come back when you get a job again, celebratory, if you will. So
yeah, it's definitely it's similar, but a little bit different from what we're seeing on the CBD side of things right now as well.
yeah, how are things going over there on the light side?
Yeah, so we've seen most of the large companies in the space have seen their e-com sales spike, right? So it's interesting when we look at the way that the CBD market has played out over the last year, is that all of these brands have shifted, towards trying to get their products on as many chained retailers as is humanly possible, and through so many of these brick and mortar retailers. Well, now a lot of these brick and mortar retailers are shutting down, right? So that's, providing a bit of a challenge. We found that more than 48% of CBD consumers said they had or were planning to stockpile CBD and make sure they had, enough product to make it through. So those consumers, when they're not necessarily sure where they can get product next, or, if they're going to have any sort of interruptions to their supply chain, they're going straight direct to consumer. And that's a real benefit that, CBD companies have, certainly that cannabis companies don't have. So as we think about what that means for the market, companies that have a really strong direct-to-consumer model are going to be, the best positioned, right, to be able to take advantage of it. It kind of feeds into, some of the consumer data again, in addition to all of the consumers that are planning to stock up, nearly 40% said they were planning to use more CBD during the crisis as well. CBD is mainly used for I shouldn't say mainly, but one of the top reasons that people use CBD is anxiety, right? Anxiety, insomnia, depression, all of these mental health conditions that, let's be honest, it's a very anxiety-inducing time right now. The challenging environment out there, and there's, with the constant news cycles, that are showing worse and worse news. It's, certainly an environment that people are going to need to have their products. So in addition to e-com sales spiking in general, we're seeing higher dosage products, spiking, people trying to stock up on as much as possible, particularly those that are habitual users, right? People who are using 5 or more times a week. This is something that they rely on. This is part of their ritual. So this is not the time that they want their rituals to break. And they want those products that people, can really trust. So it's definitely not the time to be trying fly-by-night companies that nobody, that people haven't necessarily heard of. Their trial rates of kind of new products or small brands, is not necessarily going to be as high as those brands that have really strong trust in, established, with their consumers. So
yeah. Are you seeing more going into the drug channel, given that they're probably seeing a spike in store business?
It's a great question. The buying cycles are a lot longer on the, through FDM in general. So there's a lot, it's a challenge. Everybody who can is trying to get on the shelves of Walgreens, but it's a long cycle to be able to get there. So there's not a lot of reactionary shifts in that area. The greatest ability to be able to, really shift in a tactical way is going to be a direct to consumer, or potentially even through the independent pharmacy channel, which is really, really strong in CBD in general.
Okay. Yeah, I see this as a further breakdown of the monopoly of the dispensary. CBD comes exclusively from the dispensaries in Canada. And if we have things down here like direct to consumer and delivery and other things happening, that's a direct threat to the brick and mortar establishment of dispensaries, a continuation of the trend we've seen over this year of how does cannabis exist out of just one retail route to market option. So the fact that we've seen fast solutions be put in place, like a direct to consumer or ship or curbside pickup or whatever it is, I think that's only going to make the market more healthy by kind of diversifying how patients can get their goods.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, patients and consumers in general are looking to be a little bit, everybody's shifting their patterns right now. Everybody's shifting their consumption patterns across the board. And that's something that's interesting to think about, just in general from consumer habits. Anytime that people are in going through a big change is a good time to win their loyalty. It's the same reason that brands like to target new moms is because when you have a life event that is changing everything for you, it's a time to kind of start different routines and start different purchasing components that you'll then could be loyal to for a very long period of time, right? So
Gillette sends you a razor on your 18th birthday. Nobody sent me an ounce of weed on my 21st.
Quite an oversight, clearly.
Right?
They would have won your loyalty forever.
Brand loyalty.
Perfect. Well, definitely, check out our Cannabis and CBD, consumer insights page for COVID. We'll have a lot of more insights coming through. You can check through on our social listening tracker. That's definitely another segment people are looking at. So take a look at our insights tracker. There'll be a lot of survey data going up. There'll be a lot of, interview data going up. We have our social listening data and just general commentary from our analyst team. Especially if you can forgive our barking dogs and interrupting children and all sorts of
hard
things
at work
that we are all seeing here from quarantine mode.
Yes.
All right.
Stay safe, everybody. Thank you so much, Bethany.
Thanks, Andy.